guys, Nick here with Tacoma Jeep Adventures, coming to you with another install video today. For those who are familiar with the channel, thanks for coming back, and for those of you who are new, welcome. We do lots of installs, off-road and camping, things of that nature. Starting to get into more reviews, so this is kind of a hybrid today. Be doing an install, overview, review. And as you can see, beautiful truck to my left here, and got the Airaid Snorkel kit for the 3rd Gen Tacoma. So in typical fashion, probably can't see from there, I'm going to bring you over here in just a moment. All the tools that are needed, labeled here on the whiteboard, also behind me, so I'll be sure to show you that. All the parts that come with your Airaid intake, as well as their directions. All the parts are listed here. I'll be sure to show you guys that in detail. I'm going to be going over some things to consider. Doing something like this, obviously, it's one of those projects you want to research and decide what's best for you. I'll go over kind of what I looked into, why I'm getting it, etc., which hopefully will be helpful. And then last but not least, some references as to where to get this part, how much it is. There's other videos and a blog I'll point you to that I think are very well done. So nonetheless, let's jump right in. Alright guys, here's the whiteboard with everything laid out for you. Got all the tools needed here, which I'm going to go over here in just a moment, but quickly want to point you here. References. Again, Airaid.com is where I got mine. It was $450. I think normally they're about $500, but I paid $450 for mine. Here's the part number. I highly encourage you guys Google Airaid Snorkel Tacoma, and you're going to see an article come up by Thomas Accord on trailtacoma.com, published January 24th, 2022. Fantastic. Highly recommend that. You're going to get a really good idea for a quick read as to what you're getting into. There's colored pictures, very well done. Running for Tacos R4T on YouTube. If you Google this, again, there's a couple videos by them on there. Highly encourage you watch those. In conjunction with this one, I mean, I think when doing projects like this, or in general, getting a few perspectives is very helpful. You may agree with what I do, you may not agree with what I do, right? So it's good to kind of get a few perspectives. I feel like you can pick out little nuggets from each one, right? Orienting you back over here, tools needed or things needed for this project. Hopefully you can see that clearly. I took all of Trail Tacoma's recommendations as well as what came with the Airaid kit over here, and I put those together and then added to. There's some things that may be more obvious, but I felt were important to list, which are all included here. So I think this is probably, I don't know, 90-something% of what you're going to need for this project. Something I didn't mention was a floor jack, for example, which I'm just going to use to lift my frame here to give me a little clearance to work better in there. Let's see, things to consider. I'm going to go over in more detail, obviously step by step on the install, but as promised, you can see everything laid out here. That comes in the kit. Do not return. Call them if you need to return it, guys. But you've got this flexible hose, which is really going to connect your factory air box to your new snorkel. You've got this kind of soft sticky pad, which is going to go on the back side here, in between this and the body of the vehicle. Got various hose clamps. Another item here, I'll figure out where that's going to go. This is the bracket that is going to mount to your roof, where your factory like roof rack holes will be. And then this is going to mount here on the side of the snorkel body. And this is the top, the snorkel top here. It's going to go on here. And something else that's kind of nice, they include the thread locker, all these factory clips in case you break any on your vehicle, and miscellaneous parts there. And then just quickly, so you can pause your screen, you can kind of see everything that's over there for the most part is here. Maybe plus or minus a few items. Like silicone, where my roof rack is, I'll go over. Actually, you're probably going to want that regardless if you're using that. Gloves, headlamp. I think otherwise, there's a prying tool I don't think I had listed. This punch. Otherwise, I think for the most part, everything was listed there. Alright guys, wanted to update you here. Pretty easy. This wasn't bad. Mine's already cut, So you're gonna have an extra bolt down here, 10 mil, that I don't have because obviously that portion is removed, but there's one that I removed here. Let's see, orient myself here. There's gonna be one down low. Mine's all caved in from hammering it. There's 4 that I had to take out. I'm starting to break all these little clips, but they'll look like this. There's gonna be 4 of them that you'll remove. Don't remove those. I'm doing that for other reasons. I'm installing some high clearance C4 fender liners next. But these 4 will come out and you'll see there's gonna be a bunch of replacements, as I kind of showed you, that look like this, okay? Now obviously you got your blue guys and your orange guys, which I broke all but 2. These are the only 2 that survived, so I'm probably gonna reuse those, but these all come out, right? And you stick the new ones in. So broke that one and broke all of these. And there's 3M tape that's going along here, which you can kind of see. Some of it came off on the fender flare, some is still on the body of the truck. So I'm gonna clean all that up, but just kind of wanted to give you guys an idea what that looks like. And I kind of just started here and just pulled, and it'll snap and pop and pieces will fall down, right? Nonetheless, you get all that off. I set that aside, and these are the ones that I'm taking out now. I've got a little pry tool. You might be able to drill those out because they're a pain, to be honest. I've broken all but this one so far, and there's quite a few that go around here, and then there's going to be some on this side as well. One there, one here, and then again all through here. So once I get all those out, I'll go over next steps. All right guys, got an update for you. It is all out. So there's going to be one there, one there. They're going to be all along these. You're going to have one here, here, and what I didn't realize until I stopped recording and started continuing to take this out, you're going to have one of these, which is going to be holding your fender liner on here, and then your fender liner here is going to be behind this splash guard, we'll call it. So you're going to have to remove that one and this one, right, in order to get the rest of it out. And then it'll come out exposing essentially everywhere we're going to be working in there. So wanted to note something. When removing this, I counted, there's not enough replacement pieces to take all of them out. These guys, which you can see here, so, and virtually all of them broke. What you can do, again, I'm taking this all off because while I'm in there, I'm putting in the OTF, oversized tire fitment C4 aluminum liners, and I'm gonna be cutting all this. And anyways, so you can probably just remove to say here, right? Keep some of these extras in here and pull it down enough to where you can reach up and access this, okay? I forgot, that is actually recommended by Thomas and the Trail Tacoma write-up, which I agree with. And again, you don't have enough replacement clips. So there's that. Wanted to toss that in. We're going to jump into the engine bay now. I have already disconnected the negative battery terminal. You're going to remove your engine cover by simply pulling up here. There's a couple clips there, and then rotate it to about here, and it should pull right off for you. I loosened this clamp right here, which was an 8mm or a flathead screwdriver will work. I disconnected this clip where it connects here, and this is the Pro intake off of the factory Pro. There are some differences, but pretty similar to the factory off-road intake. And what I did is basically just undid the clamps that go to the housing and just rotated it over out of the way. What else? Obviously took the filter out, and then there's 12mm bolts. There's one here and then 2 inside the housing, one there and there. I've removed all 3 of those, and now I'm going to pull this intake filter housing out. And this is what we call the point of no return, folks. You're going to have 2 sheets of paper. I have cut off the excess along these black lines. You're going to want to keep that outer black line all the way around the 2 templates. You're going to have one that says fender/door edge, right? And it's close, it's not perfect, and I'm very confident this kit has some room for error. It's going to be straightforward, plus or minus being perfect, right? It's got that neoprene kind of pad, whatever that is, in the back. So I'm happy with how this came out. I took a lot of time here in particular, got really close to this edge, and kind of just, you want to feel this body line all the way down, right? And I went over this numerous times, just kind of feeling that where it kind of rolls right here, and just, you know, playing with all the contours where it rolls against here. Kind of put some tape to aim at, got pretty close to that, and got these exact all the way down. So pretty happy with that. And I kind of just, you know, you want to kind of hold this in place through the contour as you tape it. Now what I'm going to do is take the center punch. I'm going to hit here, 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 and here, and then remove this and begin to use drill bits and the hole saw to drill through. So I'll show that next. All right, that was a lot of fun. I will say, after you punch your holes, definitely progress in smaller jumps. I understand Airaid's got well, here, I'll show you. I think it was an 1/8 inch all the way to 1/2 inch. Drill 1/8 inch pilot hole, all 4 locations. The 3 where your mounting hardware is going to go through, 1/2 inch. I did that on the first one, or actually I didn't even jump to a full 1/2 inch. I jumped from 1/8 to 1/4, I believe. No, I jumped, maybe I did. It tried to walk on me. Where I'm getting at with this, guys, start out with an 1/8. I would jump no more than 1/4, and then I went 5/16, 3/8, and then 1/2 inch, and it was a way more pleasant experience. But depending on your pilot bit, I went from 1/8 to 1/4 inch on the main hole, right? That's the one that's gonna get the 4-inch hole saw. That is different from the other 3 where the hardware is gonna go through to mount to the truck. So as you can see, you wanna make sure whatever your final hole is matches your pilot bit on this, right? So I made sure not to go above that. Don't accidentally do that, because then you're gonna have a lot of fun and you're gonna have to figure out putting a different bit in it to get accurate. But nonetheless, I was gonna go with my Milwaukee electric drill, but that thing spins hella revolutions. This is much lighter. I was able to kind of not put a bunch of pressure on it and just let it slowly work its way through the sheet metal, and it did just fine. It didn't try to walk. You're calling that. I went with that. I know I had that one laid out earlier when I went over it. Just wanted to call that out. So now I'm going to get a Dremel. I was going to use one of those discs here, which I think are better for larger sheet metal surfaces to sand down. These are pretty fantastic, but instead of doing that, I've decided, given the size of this, it doesn't make sense. So I'm going to lightly Dremel these inside and out, right? Backside, front side, get all those burrs and stuff off, make sure I got a smooth surface. Then I'm going to go ahead and apply paint and let that start curing. Another thing to note, if you have the OEM off-road airbox, I guess it doesn't have this. I'm not seeing in the directions where it says to remove this piece, but this, maybe that comes with the Pro intake. I installed this so long ago, I can't remember. But the new piece is going to replace that, right? So if you do have that, this larger end that has those slots similar to what I just showed are going to connect. They're going to go in the fender towards the factory airbox, and that's going to connect at that end. That's the larger side. Then there's the smaller side. It's going to come through the opposite way and mate here to the snorkel. So FYI on that. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get this sanded, painted, and then we'll continue. So here's my beautiful tape job. I dremeled, you know, outside, flat, inside, kept going, feeling around to make sure, you know, there's no burrs, nothing crazy on the back side. I think we're there. It did try to walk for me a couple times, so be careful, because you could ding your paint. So nonetheless, I'm going to go ahead and apply some paint, some of this here. Hopefully you can see that. And then I'm going to let that dry. And while it's drying, I'm going to go over here and put together the snorkel and walk you guys through that. All right, here we are. Paint's drying. I ended up, yeah, let me just show that real quick. I ended up taping it off further, putting cardboard behind it at each point and giving it a nice little coat, and going back in there like this with a paintbrush and getting the back. So multiple coats there. While we're letting that dry, I prep this surface. You can get some alcohol wipes or what have you. Prep underneath here. This is that pad that you tear off the backing to and apply. So you're going to do that before you put these studs in. So I prepped the surface twice, took my time. This is actually pretty easy to work with. What I would recommend is where you see these kind of these lines where the grooves kind of contour inward. I would recommend pulling this back and starting from the contour, making sure you get a good seal along that line, because what I found is just going kind of from side to side, lining the holes up and pressing it all down. You can kind of see the bubbles where those lines are. So self-explanatory, you'll probably figure that out, but nonetheless, got it to work that way. Put a little bit of blue thread locker on these studs and tighten them as far as they'll go. They'll stop. Then on this side, you're going to find they actually provide extra hardware too. You're going to see a couple of these in the bag, and you're going to see a couple flat washers and 2 lock washers. So starting from the top down, you're going to see the Allen style bolt, the lock washer, and then the flat washer holding the bracket to the body of the snorkel here. And you'll note, I mean, these holes aren't going to line up with that. These are going to line up with the factory roof holes. So it'll be obvious which side's which. So I went ahead and tightened those down. And here's where the job gets really fun. There's a few ways this can be done, which is documented on this article. R4T does something similar in that 2 individuals are running for tacos and another individual just drill straight into the Prinsu rack. That's what I have here, right? You're not going to need to worry about any of that if you don't have a Prinsu rack. It's going to bolt right to the factory mounting points, but in this case, that's an option. Sam, Rocky Mountain Yoda, as I understand, he bent the bracket a little bit and was able to use it. Another individual 3M'd it all the way down. And what I'm going to try to do, luckily I've got a next door neighbor with a lathe, so I took off from the factory Prinsu spacers. The 1/8 inch is what I think it was. I measured these with calipers, and we took that amount of material off of these spacers just to keep that same line. Now, fingers crossed, this will work. I think it will. I may have to bend it. I mean, if Sam was able to make it work and just bent it a little, that's what I'm shooting for. If you do not want to go this route, you don't have a lathe or access to one, I mean, you could technically have it spaced a little higher. I mean, it's hardly anything. I'm just OCD like that. Some other options, you can go to the hardware store and get some steel spacers at like an Ace or something. Rather, you'll just want to account for the difference there. And these are probably roughly, I don't know, for a 1/4 inch bolt, FYI. So I'll report back on how that worked out here shortly. You're also going to find these 3 lock nuts, I think. Yeah, there's going to be 3 lock nuts in there. You're going to have these rubber washers and these regular washers, right? So how this is going to be oriented is these are going to come through the fender on the inside, and you're going to, so imagine the fender's here, right? You're going to probably put this rubber washer against the fender, and then this washer, and then the lock nut would be my guess. So I'm going to go ahead and mess with this for a minute, try and get it into place, and then I will report back to you guys. All right, guys, couple things. Snorkel aligns perfectly to the body. Up the pillar, everything's perfect. There is no way this bracket's gonna work. And when this is bolted up to the snorkel, these are like way off from the factory holes in my roof on a 2016. So I don't know. Again, contour is fantastic. If that were to be adjusted either way, it would be wrong. So I'm very confident in the snorkel placement. This bracket, not confident in that. So you can kind of see here where those brown lines are. That lines up with the holes on here, not with the holes that are drilled. So I'm going to basically try and drill new holes. If that doesn't work, I'm going to do what everyone else does, and I'm going to go right through the side of the snorkel into the Prinsu rack. Another thing to note, so when you're up here, I tried to loosen all this to get this to play more so that I could wedge this to get in here a little better. These have to be in because the the snorkel is going to run into that, and there's like no clearance here. So yeah, pretty much just clean that area up. Got the bracket flushing in place, put these in place, right, to bolt it to the factory holes, and then put the snorkel in by itself to kind of see where it was lining up, because it clearly wasn't when it was all together. So if you're going to go this route, maybe you'll have to do that, maybe you won't. But that's how I was able to figure out something's wrong with this bracket, even if this weren't here, right? Because everything's clearing it. It does not line up. As you can see here, kind of looking from the top, marked them, right? Cut the holes. I went up to 1/4 inch, which gives a little play for those, but nonetheless pretty tight. And as you can see here, hopefully, there, we are aligned. So I'm gonna go ahead and test fit this, fingers crossed. Another thing, just starting to get tired at this point. It's getting pretty late here. Going at it a little while. I notched out the weather strip, right? So mark that when it was on the truck as well. Probably should have waited to make sure the bracket was gonna work. Nonetheless, you'll need to do that to keep that, should this work. I'll report back. All right, just did a test fit. It lines up. Now I'm gonna have to tighten it down on there, right? Because there's gonna be no room to do that once it's up there, and hope that it still aligns. But I mean, yeah, it looks like it's gonna work. Note, you're gonna wanna do this, measure center to center. I came up about 1 and 5/16, which is the same here, and I kind of winged it, right? Based on the trajectory of how these are. You can kind of see that there, but they line up perfect. Again, came in from the top when it was all in place and marked it. Came over here, punched it, measured center to center. It was right there, 1 and 5/16. And yeah, don't mill these like I did. Don't shave these down until you decide whether this is going to work for you or not. But I'm pretty excited because it's looking like it is going to. Check that out. Whew, that was fun. Let me tell you, let me move this out of the way so I can show you here. I had some cloth under here and I was kind of just prying up to help me work, but was able to get the spacers in. Basically, I got as much silicone as I could down in those holes before putting this back in, and then I took those spacers and I just filled them with silicone, right? I still need to finish notching this out further this way to get it to fit, but it took a little wiggling to find the holes, but we finally got it done. Found it easiest to mount back here. Come under here to get to your clamp on this. Another thing I had to do, which maybe I didn't have to do, but I wanted to get as low as I could on this. I don't know if you can see that. I slightly notched out the head, or this cap here, and slightly notched out the Prinsu rack where they kind of touch, so there wouldn't be as much pressure there. You know, at the end of the day, guys, it's probably better off just to bolt to the rack. So you'll have to pick and, you know, decide what you want to do. I also was able to, it's going to be hard to see, but basically fish the hardware up in here. Hopefully that's picking up and you can see all the hardware there, but basically, again, rubber washer first, your regular metal washer, and then the lock nut on all 3 of those. And yeah, I'm gonna start putting this together and I'll follow back up with those steps. I need to make sure, I think I figured this out because I don't see it in here where it specifically calls this out. There's this little piece right here, which has 1 little notch, as does the larger side on this. So I'm assuming that slips into there for extra, you know, fitment or something. I'm gonna confirm that, get this into place and report back. I do understand that one of these is supposed to line up with the factory air box. At least there's 1 on this one. Maybe there's 2 on the off-road, but you can see it there on the top, right? So that's gonna come through. That's gonna come through the fender this way. Well, it's gonna be on the other side, excuse me. It's gonna be on the other side of the fender that way, and the larger portion of that hose is gonna go through the fender onto that. The smaller portion is gonna mate to the hole on the back of this. All right, guys, we are set. I wanna show you here. I really loosened the clamps. I mean, to the point where they're almost gonna let go, right? The hose clamps. You want to start, I lubricated just ever so slightly the hose where it mates to the snorkel here. Hopefully you can see that. And I slipped it on as far as I could, and then got this side in through the fender. And then I kind of looked at the hose to see how it was, you know, kinked or how it looked, and then just kind of unkinked it. And after a little bit of playing with it, I saw, I mean, it wasn't binding, it was flowing well. I got the hose clamp to get enough bite on the plastic, and I pointed it down here towards me so that I could access it easier to tighten. And then coming up in here, I'll show you, I've got it right here next to, you can see the hose clamp there, hopefully, right there next to this. Now I did undo this 10 mil and that 10 mil bolt and move it over. Unfortunately, this is, thankfully it's just washer fluid. I accidentally unplugged it when I pulled it over, and she drained out all over the place. So fun little mess there. Under the filter, you may recall, got 1, 2, 12 mil bolts there. And by the way, guys, for those who are concerned that this may take on a little water, because there is definitely some concerns I'll get further into, there is a hole next to that bolt down there at the lowest point. So I assume that is to drain any water that gets in there. And then there's the last 12, right, which is outside of the air box. I'm gonna go ahead and put that back on, get it in there, get that hose clamp tightened, clips reinstalled, latched on here, and I'll be back. We got her back in, got the clip reattached, we've got the hose clamps rotated and secured. This is secured. Again, all the 12 mil bolts in the base and the one on the outside. Secure. Negative battery cable reconnected. Engine cover back on. I think that's about a wrap, guys. Overall, I'm gonna go over overall thoughts and some kind of takeaways you want to consider. One of which, while I'm standing here, I'll talk to it over there. My low pro ditch light bracket does not clear, so I'm gonna have to come up with a solution. Now I've got a random ditch light here to deal with, so that's kind of a wrinkle. So gonna have to figure that out. I have Rego fabrication low pro. I'm hoping their higher regular height will work. I'm gonna do a little research on that, reach out to a couple folks to confirm. Quickly, before closing thoughts, these little black clips in here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 in total. Those are going to go back in your fender liner where these broke. So don't take out any more than 4. And one of the ways that would probably be a little easier is to just cut these off. Some people drill them out. I'd cut them off, push them through the fender and grab them out that way. Yeah, so before closing thoughts, I had to tell you guys this is the step where you would reverse, right? So you're going to plug those back in, put your 5 10 mil bolts back in. Again, I'm going to be cutting this and installing new fender liners for the next video. So you'll want to do that, replace the blue and the orange clips that broke. I would clean this. Brake clean really works well with taking this off. I don't like Goo Gone or none of that crap. So I would personally take all this off, clean this, obviously. Like I said, replace all your clips. Get you some new 3M tape, like so. You may even be able to go a hair thinner, but nonetheless, get a little bit of that. And what I would do, excuse the walking around, is I would run it along the edge of this over the fender. I mean, it might not matter, but as long as you get it here, you know that you're not going to have any hanging out. You can kind of keep it consistent. So I would see there's just a slight little gap from where they ran it from the factory, kind of the first line in. That's what I would do. I'd run it all there, cut it right to size. And then what you're going to do is I would kind of aim somewhere in this general direction to orient yourself, right? Because these you're not going to really be able to aim for as much as something that's going to go in here. Line up the bottom, maybe even have a second pair of hands. That would definitely help on some of these steps for sure. and go ahead and start applying it, and just you'll feel them pop back in place, right? So again, once you've gotten your fender liner all put back in, replace these, prep the surface, put your new 3M on there, and apply it back. And again, there's 5 10 mil bolts for the factory setup. Hey guys, that's a wrap, at least for me. Hopefully those kind of final views of it anyways, at least for now. It's 10 p.m. here, and I don't plan on moving the truck until I finish fender liners, and I got one other thing coming. Nonetheless, popped it back on there. The fender might have been a little off, so if you saw that, that's all getting fixed. I just didn't want it all without. Anyways, wanted you guys to have a visual of the fitment, how it looked. Hopefully that captured it. So as promised, wanted to come back and give final thoughts and wrap it up for the evening here. Okay, starting at the top, why get a snorkel? That's probably one of those things online that it's almost like Chevy versus Ford or Toyota versus Jeep. There's a lot of opinions on it, and there are pros and cons. For me, when I said earlier that I was incentivized to get one, I mean, I like the look of them, but we had to go rescue one of my buddies who hydrolocked his motor. So when you start cutting factory parts like a bumper, and you guys saw, I mean, that intake is very exposed there in the fender, right? So when he came down into the water, I mean, it's something that we do all the time. You don't expect it to be like that much deeper that day, and it was. And the water came up over his fender liner that you cut for a bumper, and it went into his intake, and he hydrolocked his motor, and he totaled his 2019 Tacoma. He's since got a new one, and everything's good there, but that made me really start thinking, because that could have happened to me. And out here, there's lots of washes and stuff, right? So we go through those constantly. I've seen some folks go through some pretty deep stuff. I haven't gone to the point where, it's going up into my door where the lines are, right, when I take on water, but I've gotten, getting to the slider point anyways. And sometimes when you're going through these washes, it's fun to kind of carry a little speed. The 13 boy, when he comes out a little bit, and it seems to be the case with a lot of folks. So when you're going a little faster through the wash, you could get some water up in there. My new fender liners should help with that, but not solve it. And this is the solve for that. So snorkels are good for many reasons, not just going through deep water where you're actually going through water that's going to be flowing up through there, but sometimes even going through shallower water a little too quick, you're going to get some water up in there, right? So that could potentially happen with me, right? Whereas other people may be getting them to go through deeper water. That was not my intent. I just don't want to hydrolock my motor and have to start over at this point. So that's part one. Another reason is dusty conditions. So here in southern Arizona, my God, I mean, it's almost like there's so much dust sometimes, especially when you get multiple rigs going and you're further and further towards the rear and there's more and more rigs kicking up dust. It gets to the point where sometimes we have to space out as a group a pretty good distance so that by the time you're getting through that dust, it's already kind of calmed down. Otherwise, it's like it's dang near a whiteout. And that's worse closer to the ground, right? So as you get up and up, you see the dust kind of dissipate. So there's a theory, I suppose, that having the air intake way up there above your roof isn't going to take on as much dust. I think, if you're spacing out, maybe not as much the case, but if you're right on someone and you're kind of tailing close, I mean, your grill is just getting hammered, right? And I can tell you, I have to change my air filter more often than I change my oil, which is typically the recommended time frame by, you know, per Toyota. If you're off-roading, that's this truck sees a lot of off-road time. So it's amazing how caked that is. So I'll know more now that I've got this, right? And I'll see how bad it is for the same approximate distance. You know, every 3,000 miles or so, I'm typically checking my filter. And depending on the time of year and how dusty it is bad. So I will be curious if this will kind of help not take on as much dust in the filter, because you certainly notice a difference in the MPGs, and I swear maybe it's in my head, but when I clean that filter, I feel like my throttle even feels a little different. Another thought is well, you're crawling, there's cooler air up top, you're going to get a little cooler air and a little more horsepower. I think that's probably negligible. That's not why I was interested in it, although that is something that you hear about and read about. And that's primarily the main reasons why. Again, biggest one for me, definitely don't want to hydrolock my motor, dusty conditions. Those are the two reasons why I went with a Snorkel. So why Airaid? And there's going to be a lot of opinions on this. This one doesn't have a pre-filter, right? You're going to see some of these intakes that have, kind of looks like a dome, right? So it can't really take on water. If water hits it, I mean, you could spray a hose at those directly, it's going to fall down. It's not going to go up into the intake. I just don't like the look of them. I get the functionality, and I am 9.9 times out of 10 going to go with something for functionality. But looks, yeah, I just can't get around that one. I'm just not a fan. No offense to others, it's just not my thing. I think Airaid looks the best. It's kind of the most low profile. A lot of those seem to be really tricky to get ditch lights to work around them. And you'll notice on a lot of Tacomas, they have them pointed forward, and that kind of defeats the purpose for me for a ditch light. I've got other lights that are pointed forward, so this one seemed to contour and stay a little more low profile with the truck. There's another brand out there that's made out of carbon fiber. I won't name any brands, but it's pretty much the one. Very expensive. You're looking at like $1,000 for that one. And there was, I wanted to get that one, but there's just too much negative feedback on that, and I'm not going to pay $1,000 for something that doesn't fit right. I think that overall, that one with the slim profile that had the intake kind of on the side versus the one that goes across the front is the one I was looking at. But again, twice the cost, fitment issues, wasn't interested in that. So Airaid, again, I think kind of looked the best. It is also made in the USA, right? So that's another thing that I try to, when I can, support US products. So it's made in the USA. They've got apparently lifetime guarantee on this. It's a solid price point. I mean, $450 for US product is pretty solid, I thought. They're well established in the industry, right? So Airaid's been around a long time, and they do a lot of R&D for their products here, right? So they're kind of proven, tried and true, and yeah, those are some of the reasons why I picked them. So, how to mount to roof, we kind of went over. Each roof rack varies. Prinsu seems to be one of the slimmest roof racks in the industry for these trucks, from what I've seen. So yeah, you could run into some issues if you have another rack with this intake. I mean, it is touching. As I showed you guys, I dremeled both sides, right? I took a little off the intake, a little off the Prinsu. I mean, I was kind of committed at that point. I mean, I'd already milled the spacers that come with the Prinsu. I had drilled into the new bracket, made it all fit. I was right there. Yeah, I mean, the head of the Snorkel, you could get down further if you do not have a rack. That's one thing to note. So you kind of have to bring it up a hair more when you do have a rack. But nonetheless, made it work. I do think if I were to do it all over again, I would probably leverage one of the holes, and you'll have to look at this as recommended. Running for Tacos and this Trail Tacoma by Thomas Accord, they both have a portion. They drill straight through it. They mark it with a pin and drill straight through. Thomas gives 3 different options. Drilling straight through seems to be, I think, the best option overall. But now you've got a 4th one, right? Because there's 3 on that write-up. So yeah, overall fitment, fantastic. I mean, it fits very well. I tried to capture that in the video, but I just want to highlight that the fitment on this is really, really, really impressive. It's very good. Definitely have to figure out the ditch light bracket. If you guys know of any, drop them below, but I'm going to start aggressively looking for that, because now I've got one that I cannot use and I have to put somewhere in the intro. So yeah, let's see what else. I think that pretty much sums it up, guys. I mean, as always, if there are any questions, let me know. I do have an Instagram, Nick G for Gonzalez, Nick G _ TRD. Look me up. I'm always sharing stories, links to and updates for review type videos, you know, little reels here and there, getting a little bit more of that. Yeah, all that fun stuff. Discounts, starting to do giveaways. I do a lot of those for my off-road group. Little plug there, but starting to kind of do that more so to the broader audience. So look forward to that. That's it, guys. I hope this was helpful. Definitely takes a lot of time to make these. You basically, gosh, depending on the job, triple, quadruple, or more the time invested in putting all this together and getting everything laid out for folks. So if this was helpful or you enjoyed it, please, please, please give a little love. Feel free to subscribe, drop a like. More videos will be coming. Also welcome feedback, you know, on your thoughts to the video. And then, as always, share questions if you've got them, and I will certainly get you answers. All right, guys. Thank you. Take care.